everybody. Welcome to the Self-Aware Millennial podcast. I am your host, J.Mix. In this episode, we are discussing victim mentality. This was a subject I've been wanting to bring up for a while now because of its ties to the Black community. And Brittany, we will definitely talk about that because I remember that was one thing that you mentioned when you said you wanted to talk about this, that you wanted to bring up. But yeah, before we go deeper into that, let's define what victim mentality is for folks that may have a vast idea of what it is. So according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, victim mentality is defined as the belief that one is always a victim, the idea that bad things will always happen to one. And, I saw that definition and I was like, that ain't enough. I need something better. So I went to another website. It was longerwolf.com. And they stated that victim mentality is a psychological term that refers to a type of dysfunctional mindset which seeks to feel persecuted in order to gain attention or avoid self-responsibility. People who struggle with the victim mentality are convinced that life is not only beyond their control, but it is out to deliberately hurt them. This belief results in constant blame, finger pointing, and pity parties that are fueled by pessimism, fear, and anger, and all of that. So I thought it was important to acknowledge, I should say this, yeah. It's important to acknowledge your victimhood, but it's not healthy to stay there. And at some point, you have to rise up from the situation that's keeping you under and, become a survivor. So that's why I kind of want to have this discussion with you two, Will and Brittany, because I kind of want to just kind of go over like what it is and like find solutions for it. But I find that this discussion is important, especially to me, because I definitely have felt that I, as a Black woman, have been a victim in many instances of injustices that are completely valid. Like I should completely feel victimized by it. But I have totally been convinced by others as well to believe that my mindset is that of the victim and that my situations are irreversible because it's usually white people that'll like tell me, well, Tyra Banks made it from the struggle. Oprah made it from her struggle. And, look at all these celebrities or look at all these like successful Black people that have made it past, whatever it is that they were able to get past. And I would be compared to them and be like, yeah, you can do it too. And I'm just like, are you serious? Anyway, so yeah, I felt, especially in those instances, I was definitely gaslit or manipulated. I don't know, like we're going to talk about it. So that's why I have y'all here. And we're just going to introduce y'all now because like I'm ready to get into the conversation. It's a really sticky subject. And that's why I've handpicked today's guest to be a part of this discussion. And I know they're going to have insight and perspective to pick apart the nuances of this subject matter. And it's going to make more sense. I know it's going to make more sense once this is all over. So I want to introduce Will Howard. Will was, if y'all remember Will from episodes, I think it was 10 and 11. It was the one I did about like, should I stop categorizing white people? And we had Andy on that second episode. And it was a nice little episode. It was lengthy, but it was a good one. But it's been a minute since we've seen Will or heard of Will on this podcast. So how have you been? Like, I've seen you obviously, Will, but like the listeners have not heard from you. So what have you been doing since the last time you've been here, which was literally like at the beginning of the pandemic?
Yeah. So a lot has happened. So I'm recently, a member of the Great Resignation, like so many other millions of people.
The Great Resignation, I love it.
The Great Resignation, baby.
Yes.
Yes. So I've been without a job for like the past 2 weeks, and I've been trying to like figure myself out and trying to, make that transition and figure out what I want to be happy. And trying to, really hone in on the things that I want to accomplish. So right now I'm pretty much I'm in the beginning stages of, my pottery class. I got this big hunk of wet clay, and I'm just trying to mold it into something that I would be proud of and that I want, and to make it look like how I want, So.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
so metaphorical too. Like it's a part of your life. Like you're already like the pottery, and then like your actual life, you're like morphing it and like making it the way you. I love it. Yeah. And Will, I mean, we mentioned this in the second or the last episode you were a part of, that you're also part of a band, and it's called Will and the Foxhounds. You can't be like just keeping that quiet, Will. You gotta let folks know. What?
No, like no. Like, so yeah, that's definitely like that's going to be connected in our conversation today. And okay. I have things to say about like, you know, about the band and stuff like that. And then, yeah. So I haven't forgot about it, but yes. So everyone knows, yes, I do lead a band, and it has taught me a lot, and I'm learning things about myself, and we're going to get into it.
All right. Okay. Well, our second guest, as y'all probably just heard Brittany last week, but back. Brittany is back
for more.
Yes. So if you weren't here last week, Brittany is a co-host, creator of the Living Millennial podcast and Living Millennial Productions. And we can go into your little spiel once more, just in case people have not listened to the last episode.
Yes. You got it. So I am the creator and co-host of Living Millennial podcast, which is also a part of Living Millennial Production, creator of that as well. And I started a new venture called Planted Affirmations, and I just create very affirming apparel. So if you're a person who, is an advocate for safe spaces and an advocate for justice for all and all that good stuff, then you definitely want to rock Planted Affirmations tops. Our most popular thing right now is our empowered pronouns tops. So you'll see she, her, queen, he, him, king, they, them, royalty.
Yes.
Yes.
Very excited about that. And as we continue to grow and affirm, we just want to stay connected with everybody.
Okay. Yeah. I gotta give me, we're gonna get some. I for sure I'm gonna get some because I want to start rocking it here in New Orleans and get Planted Affirmations, out there.
I would appreciate that. I would be so excited to see.
Yeah. Make sure put this time, I for sure will put the link in the bio so folks can make sure that they, check out it. All right. So let's get into this discussion because I'm so ready for it. I am ready for it. I don't know if y'all are, but I am. Victim mentality. So in case this conversation goes all over the place, I made sure we have a goal for this episode. The goal for this episode is to identify the problems with victim mentality and the way it is perceived and acknowledged, and then present solutions to that. So we'll try it with our three minds. I know we're going to get somewhere. I got some really brilliant minds here. So let's start. We kind of touched on it just now, but the differences between victim and survivor. Like, what is the main difference between victim and survivor? I'm going to hand it to Will to answer your differentiation of what you think that is.
I would like to think that that the main difference is mentality. It's exactly that. In many ways, I know that you have two people who could be going through the same situation, but in terms of like surviving, it's like, yes, I'm acknowledging that I'm going through something, but it's not going to hold me down. When it comes to victimization, in many ways, I like to think of it as already accepting your loss and having the thought that it can't get better, or that I don't have the power to make it better, or that no one is there to help me to make it better. In many ways, victimization also connects to lack of community. In many ways, it's I can't support myself, nor do I have anyone to lean on to help me get out of this too. So So in many ways, we like to think of victimization as like something that only goes on in terms of like our relationship with ourselves, but it can also bleed out into our relationships with everyone else around us too.
Ooh. Okay. So you said a lot there, and I want to see if I can pick it up just a little bit more. But you mentioned the community, and like just now you mentioned community being, I don't know. I feel like community is partially the reason why we fall victim sometimes. Depending on, like you said, the environments that we are a part of, the community that we are a part of. If you have a community that's around you that's saying, yeah, you a victim. Yeah, you a victim, own the victimhood or whatever. I don't know. Or just not being encouraging enough to like help them get out of it. You know what I mean? Like what's that word? What they call it? Like when people just misery loves company, or whatever that word is, something of that nature. It just I had something much more substantial I was going to bring up, but my mind is all over the place just thinking about this subject. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Will, and then hopefully it'll come back, and then and then I can finish up.
So I think if anything, yeah, in terms of like community, in some ways, like you also have to consider what kind of community you have. Everyone, just because you have community doesn't mean that it's a community that like feeds you. It doesn't mean that it's a community that is helpful to you in the best ways. And when I think of like victimization, in some ways, it can go either way. Either you are someone who you consider yourself to be a victim and you do need help, but you in some ways are being a self-saboteur and you are not allowing people who could actually help you to help you. Or you could be in a situation where you are wanting help, but the people who are in your environment are not capable of doing so. Yeah. So in many ways, like you're still feeding victimization, but it's because of different situations.
Yeah. And I feel like most victims want an out, but the only way they know how to get attention particularly is by stating that they are the victim. Like that's where I feel like if they've lived there for so long, it's hard for them to, if like you said, they don't have the right resources or the right people around them. Like they're never going, like they just kind of go in that same cycle,
Yeah, because I would like to say, like, in victimization, like how people respond to it, it is a coping mechanism. And it is something that people hold on to because it makes them feel comfortable and it makes them feel seen. Many people who feel victimized do not feel seen. And when they do go to someone and are quote unquote venting or like ranting or what have you, whatever you want to call it, they have attention at that point, which is what they've always wanted.
Yeah.
But that is only like a Band-Aid. That's not really like a suture. It's not really like taking care of the scar. It's just covering up for a quick second because we haven't really got down to the core of why you are in this space,
Exactly. Yeah. This just reminds me, and I feel like I may have mentioned this already on at least these last couple of episodes, but I'm currently in like 4 days of therapy a week. And so I get a chance to speak to and just like be around others who sometimes fall, and like, depending on their vulnerability levels of the day, they fall back into their more victimized selves. And I get to watch as like the therapist and each other, how we like each other, like take this person out of their victimhood. And, we remind them that they are a survivor. We get to do that like a lot. So I feel in terms of like the perspective, like I'm so thankful to have it. I wish everybody could go to group therapy, but maybe we can just make it a thing where, it just becomes more normalized and it's not seen as like, like the only crazy people or whatever have to do group therapy, because that's totally not the case. Because I feel like everyone can benefit from group therapy. Anyway, so cool. I think we have an idea of what victim at least is. So how do we transform the victim to a survivor? how do you think that should take place? Or what's the most effective way you find that can be a thing? I'll let Brittany try to answer that.
Well, the first thing is, I think it's an important, my brain doesn't separate the two. Yeah, my perspective doesn't separate the two, because if you're here to even say that you're a victim, if you're here to say, not even say that you're a victim, but if you're here to, and you're working through whatever the traumas are, or or maybe not sometimes, right? So even when we're oversharing, or not sharing enough, when we are creating trauma bonds with people, like that's a form of survival.
Yeah.
For people.
Yeah.
So for me, there's no real difference. I think the shift we can use, or the shift that we work towards, yes, can be survivor, but could also be like what could be the, I want to use a different word other than strong or stronger, but healed, like actively healing yourself from whatever it is. Because we could be victims of a list of things, right? We could be lists of like physical trauma, physical assault, mental trauma, mental assault, systematic trauma, and systematic assault, but if we are actively healing through those things, and like, for me, that's like the language that I think just feels better. And it doesn't insult injury to the victim. It doesn't insult.
What I think? That's me. You know what I think? I think what we're trying to get at is that the difference between victim and survivor. Victim, you have not accepted what has happened yet. Survivor means that you have, and you're trying to work towards. I think the root word here is acceptance. Once you've accepted, you become a survivor, right? Right? Is that right?
I don't know.
I think in some ways, because I feel like, they can kind of like these stages, and they can kind of like, go in both directions. Like, there comes a point where like, where we might call ourselves a victim, but then we get to a point where like, okay, like we get to the other side, we consider ourselves a survivor. There might be points where like someone's in a situation and they had no choice but to survive. But once they have done that, now I'm exhausted and I have nothing else to give. And I am starting to embrace my victimization because I did not have an opportunity to do that before.
Right.
So it can like,
it ebbs and flows, and they coexist. So so we're saying victims and survivors coexist, or like Brittany said, they could be they're the same thing. I really like Will said, it's a mindset. It's like what's that? It's like tomato, or Caribbean. It's like it's how you look at it. It's your perspective.
It's like orange juice or orange juice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, let's get into like our personal experiences with being a victim, or experiencing victim mentality. So, has there been a time in your life where it could be now, or it could be like way back when, where you've had a victim mindset and then turned it around and became what we would say a more survivalist mindset, meaning like you've accepted it and like you're now on the journey to recovery and you're not looking back. And if you have experienced that, go over the steps that you took in order to get to that place. Even if it wasn't intentional, sometimes like life just happens and you're able to, get to the next point. But I want to hear your experience. And then I'll talk about mine. Let's start with Will.
So yeah, like I've kind of experienced it in different ways. We talked about me being in a band earlier.
Yes.
And the thing about it's like right before COVID happened, like, I was like, okay, we're going to get this together. We're going to start, hitting up like multiple venues. I'm going to buy this website, going to put all this information on there, going to write this music. We're going to go into the studio for the first time, yada, 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 yada. And then COVID hit. When COVID hit, there was like 6 of us in the band. When COVID hit, 3 of the band members moved to 3 different states. Naturally, we're all trying to survive. We didn't know what the pandemic was doing. We didn't know how you could catch this thing. We didn't know anything. And around the time that, like, people started getting vaccinations and things were starting to come back around, like some of my friends and my bandmates are just like, okay, so like, what are we going to do? And in some ways I was just like, man, I tried it before and it didn't happen. Like, I put all my energy into it. And the moment that I do, like, it just like fell apart. And in some ways, like, I started to like lean into that. I leaned into it a lot more. And in many ways, like, it was because I was trying to protect myself. I think I had my hopes up and I was really ready for something. And I did everything within my control to make it happen. But an outside entity, the pandemic, affected that. And in that moment, I felt as though, I lost some of my power and my control. So I was like, so what's the point? I was just like, well, like, it fell apart and I did everything I could. I had everything lined up, everything scheduled. I did everything that any, responsible person who wants something to come to fruition would do. And it fell apart. Yeah. And it just, like, at the time, it just didn't make any sense. Like it makes sense, yes, but like, emotionally speaking, it didn't make sense. Especially as someone who believes in manifestation and believes in, like, putting forth the work and, like, getting back, your return. So that made no sense to me. And in some ways, it definitely kind of like dismantled my my perception as far as like what you can do and then what the universe can do in response. And only as of late have I actually started like leaning back into it. And I've like talked with some of my friends, and especially after like leaving my job, which is like a whole nother thing too.
Yeah.
But we ain't gonna go down that road. But
we'll say that for the Patreon.
We'll say that for the Patreon. But basically there came a point where I noticed that things were frozen in time. I noticed when I went through my victimization, things were frozen in time. And to a certain extent, it was like on purpose. It's like everything just stopped. I'm just going to be in my zone, be in my emotions, and just time just like stops. And like, and I'm not doing anything. I have nothing to do. And if time stops, then, no really like responsibilities. I don't really have to respond to things. And it was a way for me to kind of like protect my emotions because I wasn't yet ready to start to make decisions and like, okay, venues, do this and da 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 again. So yeah.
Okay. So was there a moment? So I guess what you're basically saying right now is that you're still kind of sort of, at least in that element of your life, you're still kind of in the victim world and you're looking to survive, or has there been a transitional point since then?
Well, the thing about it is that like the transition is a lifelong journey. It never stops. You have to consider that like, though you might have different situations, there's always going to be a point in life where you are tested, and you are testing yourself to see how you respond to certain situations. And in many ways, you will constantly battle the monster of victimization, but in different ways. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's hard to perceive that that just because this situation is different, it doesn't mean that you aren't experiencing victimization. It's just in a different environment. And sometimes we forget that. It's for some reason, I thought that me experiencing victimization with the band was my first time. No, I've experienced this before, but it was in a different situation. Yeah. And we forget that because emotions are very finite. And when you're thinking about something, you just zone in on that and those emotions, and you forget everything else you went through before now. Yeah. You forget everything else your family or friends went through, and you are only focused on how you feel in that moment. And you forget all the other times that you might have experienced victimization and came out a survivor or what have you. So, it's
okay.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm gonna make this little note and we're gonna pin on it and come back to it. But I was just talking about how I go to therapy 4 days a week, but it does seem like in terms of victimization, there is a level of, I wouldn't say mental illness to it, but there is definitely a lack of mental wellness to bring yourself out of the victimization mentality. And so we'll put a pin on it and talk and come back to it. But I would like to hear from Brittany to see if.
Oh yes, I want to hear what Brittany said too. I want
to hear from Brittany and see if there's
no pressure at all.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think I literally just went through this a couple weeks ago, and I don't know. And this may be my first time connecting it to any type of victim mentality. But so I had a aha moment. And I haven't even said this on my parents or my podcast, but my parents are separated now and they've been together for 36 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And and they're separated now. And I knew it was coming. I feel like they probably should have, but I knew it was coming. So, mentally and spiritually, I was preparing myself to honestly be of support to both of my parents. And I'm in conversation more with my mom because my mom is most open about it, even though she still calls off on some things. But we just talk more about it and how she feels. And she's telling me more about what led to it. And she had admitted to me that, whenever they would argue and my dad would want to argue about sometimes some of the same shit from when my sister and I were much than we are now. Let me not age myself. But we were much younger than we are now. And living in two houses, it was living in the original house we lived in, just kids. Okay. But he's still holding on to something that had happened, when we were that young, that kind of dealt with us. And it, to me, in a nutshell, was miscommunication between both of my parents. But again, it keeps coming up. And then what my mom has admitted to doing, not realizing, I don't think she really heard herself. Or sometimes really hears herself when she's just sharing with me. But she basically admitted to just shutting up and getting small, avoid any worse situation, right? Basically to avoid conflict, essentially. And number one, it made me think, okay, this is why I was the crazy one in the house, because my dad would say some of the wildest stuff to me. And not in a way that he didn't love me or anything like that, but we just were two of the same people. And I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm your father. I pay the bills. This is my house. So you have to listen to me type of person. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I ain't leave. So just deal with me type of thing or whatever. You can't say nothing wrong to this man. You can't say anything really to this man, and this man can say nothing wrong. And as us being women and girls, femmes, essentially, we really can't say nothing to him. Okay. So she learned to be small. My sister also learned to be small in that environment. And me, I was not a motherfucker.
Wait, say that one more time, because for some reason I could not hear all that on my end. Say that one more time.
I wasn't getting small for not a motherfucker. That's what I said. Okay. So I was the one. So you feel me? So this all makes sense. It's all context. So I was the one who was really combating my father. The only, even with my mom, who was combating my dad. And when I was younger, I always felt like I was getting teamed up on. I got in trouble at school or something like that, and my parents would show whatever kind of anger. My dad would come home and whoop me if he came home first, and my mom would come home and whoop me if she came home first, right? Or vice versa. And yeah, I just always felt like I was being double teamed, and it was always something that started between my dad and myself. Sometimes, though, if it was anything that started between my dad and myself, my mom wouldn't say anything. She would just go away. She would just leave. And for me, up until 2 weeks ago, I let the anger go, but I realized that I had so much anger towards my mom when she walked away, because to me, that was also her siding with my father. Like, oh, you're going to leave. You're not going to try to help me, stand up for me, say anything to him, tell him to stop, tell him to cool out, you're not going to intervene at all. You're taking his side like you always do, because y'all are union, y'all are one, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah. Like, then fuck both of y'all. Right. Yeah. But then hearing my mom, basically admit that she would shy away from conflict with my dad because she didn't want things to get even worse. Yeah. Like that just, and I was actually having this came to me while I was in therapy too. Okay. So it took me 5 minutes. My therapist was just like, she's like, yeah. And I'm just like spewing all this stuff out. And she was like, yes. She's just like, let it out, girl. Make that connection. Yeah. Again, to me, in my mind, even though I had thought about it for a long time, I was still, my body, my soul, my spirit was still harvesting this idea that both of my parents were against for years, and I guess maybe the survival part or the healing part, I won't say survival part, but the healing part for me is really, number one, humanizing my parents and understanding that they didn't have the tools, still don't have the tools to really approach conflict head on and to do it in a responsible and a productive and a healthy way. So they both only what they knew to do, and that was to either bark and yell and blah, 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 and cuss and slam and whatever and punish, or to just walk away. So now I feel like I'm doing the healing, honestly, for my parents and myself.
Dang, that is so real. I've done the exact same thing in terms of our stories parallel in terms of me and my relationship with my parents, except my parents are still together, even though they are really, I guess I shouldn't say all this, but if they were to separate at some point, I'm not going to be upset. I don't think I'm just I understand. I knew how I grew up, but my mom was the exact same way. My dad would go, whatever, do all these things, and then she would not do anything. And I'm you're supposed to be at least protecting or not siding, but at least speaking up for things that aren't right, that we know aren't right. Mm-hmm. But anyway, thank you for sharing that. I know that was probably, especially since you just figured that out in therapy, I thank you for feeling safe enough to share that on this platform with people that you don't know. Literally. No problem. No. So my version of this victim mentality. I actually kind of talked to this with Will before. I was going to do this episode a while ago because I was having a conversation with one of my friends who was actually on this podcast before, I should mention. Now y'all can kind of go figure out who it is. But I had this conversation with him. That narrows it down. About, I think we started talking about victim mentality, or at least the victim mentality world. This was around the time, I would even say I think it was last year. Around this time last year, maybe a couple of months later. But for full disclosure, around this time last year, actually, it was probably a year ago, this episode, I was a part of a march for in solidarity of the World War II museum workers there was a bunch of stuff going on, but at that point it was like in the wake of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all that was happening last year. And I think it was around the time I also quit my job at the museum. So we led a march because there was something happening within the museum where one of the employees wore Breonna Taylor mask to work and was told by HR that they couldn't wear it because it would give incentive for someone else, like someone who like someone who supports the KKK to like come in and like wear whatever they want. Now that was problematic, and we were like, "Oh hell no!" And so we literally we led a march, and we did a whole rally outside of the museum and everything. I would say that was literally not even like, I would think that was a month after I had quit. So I'm still feeling like at that moment, like I was still feeling really like I felt the type of way about it. I think also around that time, the job that I was a part of with the Victory Bells, there was just a lot of like really shady stuff happening where like they were cropping me out of pictures that they had already had and like stuff like that. So like I was just like already like feeling some type of way, right? And so I kind of confided in this person about it, or like I was trying to like get over it. Like I wanted to not feel like the museum or anything that was happening within the museum was like taking over my life, or like that it had any power over my life. Because I knew I was almost like a victim, really. Like I couldn't really get past it. And talking to this person that we're talking about, like it didn't, I wouldn't say it made it better, but I think this person was we had several conversations about this, but like I think one of the main ideas that he was getting at was that, you know, that like I remember one thing which really stood out was that, the museum is going to operate the way that they've always been operating. They're not going to change, or the change is not going to be quick. So, stop waiting for it. Move on with your life. That is not going to happen right now. And I'm like, okay. And so I was able to get over that. But then there was something, we may have just been like doing like an argument about something. I don't honestly remember the whole context, but I do know that he started talking about like other figures that have come from nothing and now they have everything. So like they were talking about Oprah and like folks that obviously I can identify with because we're human and because like there's like just different whatever's nuances to like just people, but like to compare or like to say that the only reason I'm a victim is because I haven't done it the way that Oprah did it, or that's the way it was coming across to me. It wasn't helpful, but I see where they're coming from. I should also mention this person is white. And
that was my question.
It's very easy. I find that if anyone is telling me this, no one that has not been white has told me this. Like everyone, well, I'm sorry, did I say that wrong? No person of color has told me this before or has ever, like, I've been told this a couple of times. We hear these narratives in a lot of spaces that are majority white in terms of like starting from something and like if you can do it, if you can do this X, Y, and Z, you're gonna get here. And that's not always the case for us. And now when I think about it in that way, I'm like, okay, so am I falling victim to my reality of knowing that like being a Black woman is going to be a lot harder? It's not impossible, but it's going to be a lot harder to get to where, let's say, Jimmy can get in like 5 months. I take maybe a whole year to get to, because Jimmy is, I don't know, like in the world that we live in now, it's just easier. It's more accessible. is that a bug? Sorry, I'm getting all sidetracked. So yeah, that was kind of all over the place, and I don't even know exactly where I was getting at, but that's why I want y'all's help to help me figure this out. I think that
go, Brittany, go.
Yeah, go,
you know,
Brittany.
like
Go,
we like
Brittany.
playing double
Brittany,
dutch, right?
Go.
First of all,
Go.
First of all, whoever Jimmy Crack Corn is, he needs to go on somewhere. Because so here's my thing. And I say this with no real hatred. I say this is just the reality. White people are often looking for the exception. And when they do that, they still other us. Regardless, we're still putting us in the other category. Well, Oprah did this, Oprah did that. Oprah is probably the only Black person that you have ever had some sort of relationship with, and you only watching her on TV. So you can't use Oprah or Tyra Banks or I don't know,
Obama.
Keke Palmer, Obama. You cannot use them. We can always use them as exception. Are exceptions to the rule, but you can always throw them in our faces because at the same time that they were growing and they were progressing and they were navigating majority white spaces, probably weird ass conversations with them. We also still have to recognize that we have systems and policies in place that oppress Black people, that we are still fighting a system that allows discrimination in some areas, that we still have a large pay gap. We still have a large wealth gap, large housing gap. We still have a large gap in job, and particularly right now, young Black men finding and getting jobs and being hired. So, okay, Oprah, he, kiki, yada, yada, yada. However, in reality, for the rest of us who you're walking the streets with, we have another system to fight and to climb through. And as you were saying, it's going to take you a little bit longer than Jimmy Crack Corn, who was extremely mediocre. Yeah. And probably inappropriate in most areas, but still is able to skyrocket in his career, his whatever, because he was rubbing elbows with whoever else is a part of, the corporate that we're also trying to climb and get through.
Like having the resources is really about the resources you have. You've already been born into a community of people that have hoarded the resources for so long. That someone like myself, who is a part of a community that's still looking for them, that we still don't have nearly as much, like I don't find myself being a victim in that regard. I find myself being I'm telling the truth. Like I'm just like being aware of it. Like I'm acknowledging it and still trying to find a way. Go ahead, Bill. Will is like
tag team.
Yeah, well, let me talk to Jimmy. We're going to talk to Jimmy Cracker. We're going to talk to Jimmy because all I'm going to say, and let this be a message to anyone who has a certain level of privilege over someone else. Don't ever dare compare a minority to someone that was the first. You are comparing... Jimmy, I'm going to talk to you about Jessica, Jimmy. You're comparing Jessica to the first Black female billionaire. You're going to compare me to the first Black African-American president. You're going to compare Brittany to the first Black woman that was ever on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You cannot compare the mass majority of people who are experiencing discrimination to the first.
Yes.
That sounds crazy. And it is. It sounds crazy because it is.
Yeah. And think about and I'm thinking about like the Jimmys of Oprah's time. Like, I'm sure there was a Jimmy that told Oprah, that there was a note. Like,
well, I love Oprah. I can tell you.
That's a part of her story.
Oprah. I can tell you. Brittany, you gonna say it or you want
I
me
got
to?
you. Nope. Go ahead. Take it up. Take it over. Take it over.
I love y'all. I love it.
So Oprah had a co-host on her show. Like when she was first starting out, she had a co-host. And
wait,
her co-host
I didn't know
was
that.
a white man. When she was first starting out in her
I think
like
I remember
news,
that.
Anchor stuff.
Yeah.
And she had a co-host. And she found out that her co-host was making more money than her. So she went up to the boss and she said, hey, I was wondering, if I could have a raise because, so-and-so is like making this amount of money. And her boss said, well, do you have a family? And she's like, no. And she's like, do you have any kids to put through school, take care of? And she's like, no. So her boss said, so why do you think you need that much money? Excuse me?
That's ridiculous.
Am I right, Brittany? Is that the story?
Right. That's the story. That's the story, King. That's the story. Mm-mm.
Yeah. And
Oprah said, fuck you.
Yeah. This is not about what we're doing outside of it. This is the work that we are putting in right now. If we're putting in the same amount of work, we should be getting the same amount of money. That point blank period. I don't care who you decided to shack up and, wed or whatever. Like that is personal choices.
We are doing the same job.
Yes.
We are doing the same job, if not more. But here's the thing. While Brittany was talking, I had to write down some notes because, I've been writing down stuff because, I get into these conversations. I like to write down notes. But what I wrote down was this. When we experience the realization of less power, it feels like we are powerless. And in moments where we feel our power being taken away, it feels like we have none at all. And we forget that the very fact that we are still alive on this earth entails that we still have power in our lives.
Period.
Yes.
Wow.
So I just wanted to say that, but I wrote it down, so I need to write this down.
Yes.
Write that down.
And put it on a t-shirt.
Right. A cap, do all that stuff. Make a little quote for yourself. Make it all nice and cute.
Come on, planet affirmations.
I'll go back to my
brain goes there.
Positive.
Yes.
But that's so real. I'll say this really quickly too, because I know whenever I've had somebody try to tell me, and this is always, so for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, here in San Diego, I am I'm an activist, basically. It's shifted since COVID come into place. But like when, I'm definitely the one that's going to show up to council members who's an advocate for civic engagement and want everybody to show up and stand up and make your voice heard, push certain policies been passed here in San Diego, and even in California across the board, right? So like when we talk about being involved and we talk about statistics and all that shit, like I'm well aware of what is going on because it's necessary when you're having these conversations.
Yes.
Means that I'm interacting with people who are on the opposite side, right? But and unfortunately, these people on the opposite side are getting fed or consuming bullshit information that's I feel like people are just pulling out of their ass. But one thing that they will try to bark at you is that, when we talk about our history, then they try to say, oh, like you're just stuck in this victim mentality. All y'all need to just victim mentality. They will use that shit. And that gets me so hot, which is why I said earlier, when you realize that when you look at the numbers and you look at statistics and you are aware of the huge gaps that are happening, particularly in this globally, of course, but particularly in this country between, our different communities, our communities of color, especially versus the white folks and the white communities, like, when you know those things and you also experience it and you see it on paper, you see it in numbers, like somebody telling you that you're in victim mentality, you're going to be in go mode right away. Right. And you are already equipped with the tools and the language to tell them, hey, cut all that out. because you're about to get these hands now. I don't got that many words for you.
Let me mention this right quick. I'm gonna put a pin on that right quick, just only because I'm normally that person too. I have it all in my head. This kind of goes back to the last episode that we just had, kind of, sort of, but like in terms of how I am able to, I can't argue, I can't speak out everything that I want to say. It's usually all in my head because that was the way I was disciplined when I was a child. I was not allowed to speak out what I wanted to say. Like I was like discouraged from that. I would get beaten. Like I was not able to do that. So like all of my thoughts, all of like the things that I want to say, I had to write out. So what normally happens if someone is like coming at me and saying something like that, you're like, oh, you're in the victim mindset. Like I just start shutting down. I'm in survival mode. I cannot speak up for myself in that moment. And it's something I'm still trying to see if I can get out of, but I'll just admit I'm not there yet. So,
yeah.
And it sucks because I'm like, I know I'm not a victim, but I can't say anything. So it makes me feel like I am a victim because I can't say anything. It
adds more frustration. I know. Yeah. I totally understand that. That makes you even more frustrated. But I mean, one thing I love to tell people, and this is on any conversation that it's very clear that they don't know what they have, and they just are mimicking whatever these weird ass commentators on Fox News are saying, who also don't know what they're talking about. But I just tell them, I say, it's very clear that you're not equipped to have a productive conversation with me on this. So we could end this now.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, nobody has ever come up with anything better to rebuke what I've said when I say that. It's like, you're not the one to have this conversation with, because saying something like that is a prime example of what you don't know. Yeah. And it's a prime example of, again, your inability to have a productive conversation. And this is this is why I'm happy that we're having this conversation, and your goal is to find resolutions and to work on it and figure out how we can practice these things, and where we can spend our energy on. Yeah. And we don't have to spend our energy with or on people who look at us as victims who are stuck. We don't want to spend our energy on those kind of people. They can suck our whatever we got, our genitals.
I think to add is that, like, here's the thing, and this goes for everybody. This goes for everybody. Like, when you are in the place to address someone as experiencing victimization, or to say you have victim mentality, you are automatically in a place of privilege. Because you clearly are in a place where you are not that. And you have the mental capacity, you have the energy, you have the emotional capacity to acknowledge that from the outside. Mm-hmm. So you already have privilege to even be in that point to be like, you're being really victim-y right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because if you have a situation like that where, like, where you have someone who is white and they're being like, you're being a victim right now. You have a situation where, you as a woman are getting told by a man that, like, you're being a victim right now. Like, like, yeah. my sisters, like, when they had their periods, they were fine. And you're just like, I think you're just like, doing too much, like all of that stuff. But again, you as a man who don't even experience that cycle are speaking from a level of privilege to tell you as a woman that you are experiencing victimization, or you are considering yourself to be a victim.
Yeah.
So anyone who can say that or address that or label someone as a victim automatically is speaking from a place of privilege.
Yeah. And I think that, yes. I know we're talking about white people in particular, or white men and white whatever, but like I feel like we all have a level of privilege in at least some way, shape, or form, and we have utilized our privileges to make someone else feel victim because they can't, they don't have the same privileges or whatever, so they utilize that. So in that regard, it's like, and this is probably a whole nother episode, like why do we present and do stuff like that to others where we have to like recognize or like not necessarily treat them like victims or anything, but like why why like I don't know how to answer. I don't know how to ask that question.
Let me help you. Let me hop in.
Because,
Because here's the thing. Like at the end of the day, now just because we're acknowledging that these people have privilege does not mean that they are using it against you. Like I just want to make that clear. Like, you know, we all have privileges, but how we use them against people or for the benefit of people is really what makes the difference. Now, I can be somebody who's just like, you know what? I see you're having a hard time. You know, I'm here for you if you need me. I'm in a place to like be here for you. That's different than saying, oh, girl, like you being victim-y right now. That's gonna make Brittany laugh. You're being real victim-y right now. Now, you see, in both situations, clearly those people have privilege because they have the capacity to pretty much like talk from the outside. They have the privilege of speaking from the outside, not being in that situation, but how they're going about that privilege and acknowledging, you know, someone's situation is the difference between those two.
Yes. Yeah. Oh Lord. I'm trying to see how to transition from that. There was something that was in my head that made a lot of sense.
My head, I you are loving me.
You need to start writing your stuff down. J-Mix.
Yeah, I know. It's so hard. Like I'm especially in terms of like my thing is like my thoughts are so fleeting. Like I have one thought and then I think about another thing and then the other thought's gone. Like and I don't even have time to like think of But I'm trying to piggyback off of what you said. I thought that was important. So victimization. I know we're kind of talking about the context of like white people and victimization, or like so should we just say that white people shouldn't be trying to victimize or like tell Black or people of color? No person that is of privilege should be saying anything to, that's what it was. I found it. Okay. So, I think that the only way I find that because this happens to me, this is not just like this one Jimmy person. There's other people that have done this. And I find that the only way I'm able to, I wouldn't say tolerate or I feel like the conversation is still fruitful, because it's not that I can't get through a conversation or through someone that is like saying that I'm the victim of my da-da-da-das. It's that we come to a conclusion or like, okay, so we are arguing necessarily, we're kind of arguing semantics, but we have a goal. Like, what is this goal? Like, what is the goal of this, of all of this happening? Like, what is our values? Where do we want to see this? So like in this instance, the way we were able to kind of get out of it was like, okay, well, we want this type of world for everybody. And we both agreed on that. It was just the ways in which we get there that we weren't aligning on. And, you know, him calling out the victim mindset does not make it better for me. But we do know in the end that we have the same end goal. So this is human. This is life. This is evolution, y'all. We're usually all in some way, shape, or form, we're trying to we're all trying to get to a specific end goal. It's just our ways of going about it are different. And it comes from our perceptions of the world and how we were allowed. I'm saying allowed that we were allowed to maneuver through this world like as children. Goes back to our childhood and not being some of us were a little bit more free to explore. And I think even in terms of like victimhood or feeling victimized, like I think that comes like a lot of that mindset sometimes also comes from what happens in our childhood and our abilities to address it or not. Am I saying it? Is this making sense? Because I'm like, it makes sense as I'm saying it, but I'm just like, does this really make sense? Because
it makes sense. And I would add this, it also, even if we have the same end goal, how we resolve issues and how we resolve problems, can also differ, right? So for me, I would say this: a resolution would be for most people to shut the fuck up about shit talking about, for real. Seriously. Like just shut up and acknowledge when you don't know what you're talking about, acknowledge when you're wrong, be aware enough to know like, okay, I can't in this conversation. I would love to be a part of it, but I can't go in depth in this conversation because I don't think people realize that they really be advocating for like toxicity and real thinking that, they're advocating just for like freedom or some shit like that. And it's like, no, what you're advocating for, what you're pushing is for people to feed this entitlement to another thing, to another person's body, to another person's decisions, how another person dresses, who another person sleeps with, how another person's, how we alter our bodies if we want to, or, put tattoos on. Like we have this sense of entitlement to how someone else should move and should operate. And we really should just shut the fuck up. We should only be entitled to shut the fuck up. If that makes sense. Because
I hear it.
Seriously, because again, I'm going to connect it back with like at least the people that I've been in conversation with who want to spew the, this victim mentality rhetoric. Like it's because that's all they have in their toolbox to combat someone who has, real solutions, real statistics, and real experiences.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking about, this whole time really, but I'm also thinking about people who have been victims of sexual assault as well. And how even in our fucking injustice system, even how from the moment someone is even able to speak up and try to get help, like it's instantly, in some cases, unfortunately, it's all, well, what did you do? Well, what were you wearing? Well, where were you at? And all this other stuff. And it's like, I could be nothing to do with it. I can be in the middle of a mosh pit, butt ass naked, legs spread open, and nobody has the right to insert themselves or to us on me if I did not, with my mouth, if I did not say,
you can go in.
Right. Like, please and thank you. But but again, so I just think that if we all come from a place, so we all come from a place where we're aware enough to know like what we have, what is going to be more helpful and what's going to be more productive. If we can identify that compared to like, okay, I don't know much here. Let me remove myself from this. Then we will all be in a much better place in almost every category.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, like, pretty much exactly what y'all are saying. I think that a lot of times people who are privileged, whenever they are trying to address a conflict with the minority, it seems to me there's always this process where they try to rewrite the narrative or rewrite our stories to benefit their perception. And you have to, and that's one of those things where like,
right now. We're back in church, Brittany.
But it's true, T, because it's one of these things where it's just like, you are speaking from a place of privilege. You are speaking from someone who has not experienced the same experiences that I have. So for you to redefine my situation, for you to relabel who I am, for you to rewrite a narrative for me based on a small conversation without you even having a full background as far as like what I've been through or to what extent I've experienced discrimination.
Yeah.
Who are you again?
Period. And how can I help you?
And how can I help you? Where did you get your sources? Please list them, because we don't have time for this. And then on top of that, we also have to acknowledge that everyone does not have access to the same amount of tools.
No. Nope.
In order to make their way through life. When I watched that, like, what was that scene? What was it? Little Fires Everywhere.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. I heard a lot of good things about
Brittany, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. J.Mix, come on.
Girl,
I know, I haven't watched it. Is that Netflix? Is that on Netflix?
Hulu, boo.
Hulu. That
Okay.
one's on Hulu.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Patreon. We'll recap it in Patreon.
But J.Mix, you sit to the side because you haven't seen it. You gonna listen. Brittany, you know what I'm talking about?
Right.
When I forgot her name already. But when Kerry Washington was telling the little white girl, whatever, she was just like, we are not from the same places. We don't have the same opportunities, which means that we don't have access to make the best decisions.
Yeah.
We don't have the privilege to make the best decisions that will be better for us and for everyone else. We do not have that privilege. It's one of these things where it's like, okay, you have the money, you have the background, just like what y'all were saying, you have the money.
You also have the safety net. If you do mess up, you have a safety net that's going to bring you right back up to, if not further than you were when you fell down.
Yes. And then but with that, it's like what it was basically getting down to is that like, you have to understand that like, even to get to where you are, you have certain, basically I put it like this. There's so many thoughts, just like what you're saying, like, oh, so many thoughts going through my head right now. Oh, there's so much.
Gotta catch them before they go away.
But basically, like, put it like this. All right, we'll put it like this. You have a rich white family. And just so y'all know, even rich people, they do drugs too. They get addicted to something. They get addicted to something. Mm-hmm. And then you have someone in a Black family and they get addicted to something and they don't have as much money.
Amen.
Okay. Now, they are both addicted. The white family, they have money to go to rehab. The Black family, we don't have the money nor the resources within our neighborhood to combat this addiction.
Right.
Now, eventually, one of those people are going to be like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and keep doing what I'm doing because I don't have the proper sources to better myself. Now, does that make that person bad? No. That person just did not have the same resources accessible to them to make the better decision to get better.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I love to say that because like I even think about it in like our own lives, like life in general. We're just doing what we got to do to survive, whether we only got a dime or we got $1 million in our bank. Like we are doing whatever we have to do in the moment to survive and get ourselves out of this victim mentality. So, that was such a great way to like, I guess maybe sort of know. I have one more question. I have one more. Um, so we've already basically said, white people just don't do it. Don't tell Black people that they have victim mindsets. We have cleared that. But I kind of want to just give a quick advice to, let's say, victims right now of whatever it is, who are having a difficult time getting out of the mentality. What resources or what do you think that they should do to at least start the process? Let's say they haven't even started. Let's say they haven't even realized they're a victim yet. Let's walk them through what you think would. I mean, clearly every victim of every something is different, and it depends on, again, resources and just overall just knowledge and acceptance of, let's say, being a victim. But what should they do in order to get into the healing process so that they're no longer a victim to whatever their situation is?
Well, I think honestly, in some ways, it kind of connects what I wrote down before. Even though I feel as though I have less power, it doesn't mean that I'm powerless. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, if you have that mentality, or at least that mantra,
yeah,
which is something that you can enact, you remind yourself that first of all, this is only a moment in time. It's only a season, this is how I'm feeling right now. Again, emotions are very finite. So we have to definitely learn how to be, gracious and very patient with ourselves. And with that, you have to just keep in mind that okay, I don't feel at my most powerful right now, but that doesn't mean that I'm powerless. That doesn't mean that I don't have any moves to make. That doesn't mean that I don't have, access to people who are willing to help. And I think that's that's a good start to have.
Okay. Well, now that you're saying that, I can piggyback off that a little bit, but I'm a visual person. I like being able to see where I am and where I'm going to go, and then figure out where in the middle I need to figure that out. Right. So let's say I have a goal of getting out of the victim mindset. Let's say I have already kind of planned out what I would like in terms of my healing and where I want to be emotionally, physically, mentally when I am out of it. Like Will said, every single day that you're at least working towards it means something, whether you are feeling less powerful that day or you're feeling more powerful. Every little step counts. But I think the biggest thing is obviously you can't do this alone. We are humans. We thrive in communities. We don't thrive by ourselves. So utilize your people that you have. Utilize the people that are around you. If they are not the right people, find those people. It may be hard, but I'm telling you, there is somebody out there. I don't care if it's an emotional support animal till you get to a human, to the right human. Literally, use whatever it is that's going to at least keep you above water until you get to that next step. And I know I'm talking to, I'm thinking about it even now, as I'm talking, these listeners right now, they obviously all have access to listening to a podcast. The people I'm talking to sometimes don't have access to listening to podcasts. So I wish I could get to those people too when I have a conversation about this. That's why, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when we wrap up, but I want to get these conversations out to communities that need them, that need these types of resources for this specific thing. So, yeah, I think that's all I really have to say on that. Brittany, do you have anything?
Honestly, for anybody, I would say write. Start with writing. If there is something that you don't even have the language for, right? If it's something that triggered you, or that you felt uncomfortable, or something just feels weird in your body or whatever, just start to write and try to understand maybe what was happening, or write down what was happening around you when that feeling started. And, maybe what that experience reminded you of, right? And try to kind of, make some connections with that. And, along with everything that you both just said too, especially in terms of community. And then when you find a tribe, or when you finally find those resources, it's going to be so validating when you finally learn, when you find someone who can articulate better what you've experienced. Like, that should be having me jumping out of my chair, y'all. Y'all should see me sometimes at the house. I'll be listening to certain podcasts or like listening to certain audiobooks. I'm like, oh, god damn, oh yes. Like having a whole praise and worship session over sometimes just one word that just that just explains, that affirms me, that validates experiences, and really just explains something that I have had a hard time explaining, right? But we can make those connections when we start to kind of write and we start to take the time and get a better understanding ourselves, or have an acknowledgement of what has happened, how it makes us feel, and what potentially, is triggering. And, when we had a response to something or reaction to something that we did not like. Oh, I did not like what I don't think I should have said that to her. I don't like the way I said that. Like, even that made me feel bad. Write that stuff down. Yeah. And then begin the work to do better. And that's going to be helpful for all of us, whether, again, like you said, whether we acknowledge that we are in, a victim mentality, a low vibrational, state, any of those things, whether we realize it or not, we can begin to do the work to identify what we're not happy with and put in practices how we could do better.
Yes.
And I would even add on to that. I would piggyback off that, just like journaling, writing everything down. Yes. And I would say one thing that worked for me for a while. There was a time where all that I had the capacity to do, because I've experienced victim mentality, and I know when I was going through that, I did audio journals. I would record myself and just talk. Yes. And I would just talk. Stream of consciousness just rolling, and I just talk and talk and talk and talk. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm in a better space, I will listen to that, and I will listen to it as if it's somebody else, and I'm picking out all the things that I would do for my friends. So I would highly suggest people doing an audio journal and actually talking, just letting that shit go. Because sometimes I'm thinking faster than I can write. So sometimes I just need to get it out. I just need it out. So I would definitely suggest that too.
Agreed.
Yes. All right, y'all. Well, let's give them your socials, because they probably gonna have questions. So give them your socials. Let's start with Will, since your mic is off. Your mic is on.
So you can find me. Well, my band is Will and the Foxhounds. On Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And I'm working on finding myself back into my willfully positive mental health, self-awareness stuff too. So you can find me on Willfully Positive. The tag is Willfully Positive on Facebook and on Instagram too. And if if I get a few more likes, I'll show me. And YouTube, I do YouTube videos. YouTube. So I forgot about that.
I did it. I love them. They're so good, y'all. I get so much inspiration from Will. Will is probably one of the main reasons I still have this podcast, because every time we have a conversation, literally, when we talk, I'm this is I feel like our conversations are part of the reason why I was I want to do a podcast. And this is exactly why. I don't think you do. Did I ever tell you this? Probably not. But yeah. And
I don't think
now
so.
Now that you have your YouTube and you're giving these really affirming means of talking about things that are usually uncomfortable, or just things that people don't shy away from. It's willfully positive is basically kind of the YouTube. How can I describe it? For dummies, not for dummies, Spark Notes. It's the Spark Notes version of the Software Millennial, but it's so much. Y'all check it out. I'm gonna leave it in the show notes. Y'all definitely gotta check out at least the episodes, or do you call them episodes, or just videos that you have?
You can say videos. You can say, you can say videos. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love it. I really do.
That's so funny.
And yeah, Brittany, let them know where to find you again.
Okay, I'm following Will. Hold on, give me give me a second. Hold on, and I'm subscribing.
Yes, please. Check it out. Check it out, Brittany. You're gonna love it.
Brittany, I'm waiting for yours, boo. I'm waiting for yours.
All right, so this time I'll start with my personal handle.
Okay.
So my personal Instagram is at Hey Queen. That's HE 5 Y's QU 4 E's and 1 N.
I love it.
I think that's it. Hey Queen. Okay.
Hey Queen.
And then y'all can find us on Facebook, on YouTube as well, and on Instagram under Living Millennial Productions. That's us. You'll find myself and my co-host Mandisa, who is just such an amazing being, such a super divine, sweet soul who's doing amazing things. Mm-hmm. And we have conversations similar to this. And we celebrate the Black millennial perspective, and we celebrate this dope ass community, especially as we navigate majority white spaces and do the damn thing. You feel me?
Yes. I feel it. All right, y'all. If y'all have loved this conversation, which I know you did because you stayed until the end, please share it with your friends. Rate highly on Apple Podcasts so that this content gets to people who need that affirmation that they're not alone in their thoughts and curiosities about the world, especially a victim mentality like right now, you know. But I should also mention that these episodes are not possible without you guys. And I thank everybody who is a part of my Patreon right now. And if you want to become a part of it, it's still growing and thriving. You can follow the Self-Aware Millennial on Patreon at www.patreon.com. Once we get to 50 patrons, I'm hoping to be able to branch these conversations, as I was saying, out into the local communities where these conversations need to happen. On my Patreon, you'll find bonus content. You'll find bonus discussions. You'll find bonus reflections on like just stuff that I'm going through in my life that I don't feel like sharing with the main platform. But I feel like also at one time, like last year, I like put up some of my like more risque photos and just left it on my Patreon. So if y'all want to join Patreon just for that, feel free. I don't mind. Like it's $5 a month. Maybe I'll do some more. Maybe I'll do some more for the patrons. But yeah, no, I just kind of post a lot of different personal stuff up there. And I'm actually thinking about, now that I'm watching a lot more Netflix, and I just finished Squid Game and like all of these other Netflix shows, Sex Education, I want to just have like a nice debriefing conversation with like folks, even it could be like past guests that want to talk about it. Like nothing related completely to the Self-Aware Millennial, but maybe we can tag a little like self-awareness in it, you know, like, I don't know, like just find means of like figuring out our own self-awareness through watching certain Netflix shows. I don't know how we're going to do that through Squid Game, but I know there's a way. So anyway, y'all join my Patreon, www.patreon.com/self-aware millennial. And if you want to sponsor the Self-Aware Millennial, if you have not known, at least at this point, I'm a Black woman who's on a mission to normalize these uncomfortable conversations in the communities where they need to happen the most. So if you want to help me in that process, you can email me at theselfawaremillennial@gmail.com. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Thank you so much, Brittany and Will, for being a part of this. It was such a great discussion. Again, y'all, I'm J.Mix, and I am out of here until next time. Bye.